Well, good Sunday morning to everybody out there in internet land. How y'all doing? It is a great day to be alive. I don't know about you guys, where I am, the sun is shining. There's a few clouds in the sky. It's Sunday morning. The world is at peace. Well, as peaceful as it can be, I suppose. My name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative, and welcome back to Front Porch Brunch. That little gathering that we have where we get together and we talk about the news. All the things that you were too busy to get your arms wrapped around while you were out there making the American dream happen. We take time on the weekends to come together so that you, as a valuable and important person in the world, may have the opportunity to find out what went on while you were out there with your nose to the grindstone. My name is Brian Trippett. I am known in social media as the Front Porch Conservative. I am sometimes called the beau in the chapeau, sometimes the common man with common sense, and a bunch of other nicknames. Some of them you can even repeat on the internet, so there you go. Anyway, it has been an absolutely wild week, and part of that is reflected in the fact that we are changing the normal day that we do this. For regulars on the Front Porch, you'll know that we do this on Saturday mornings. However, I had a family commitment that was and it kept me from being able to be here. So I had some birthdays to attend to for some little people in my family. So there you go. And it's all good. We can always change this thing up whenever we need to. So yeah, we're glad you're all here. Let's see who all's in chat so far. We have Ms. Z Highness. You wonderful lady. You are in church, but you're, oh my, don't you get caught by the preacher now. We don't want you getting in trouble with the Lord's servants or the Lord himself for that matter. So there you go. Hello, Flagrant. Glad to have you here. Gypsy's in the house. Yes, we are glad to see you. Glad to see everybody for that matter. As I say, it has been an absolutely wild week. First, from the fact that we're changing the date around to do this, we're doing it on a Sunday, which normally I don't do. Like I said, for those of you who are dropping by for the first time, you're going to be watching this later on. We normally do this on Saturday mornings at 10:30 because I know that usually Sunday is that one day of the week where everybody just loves to do absolutely nothing, including letting their brain vegetate. And I thoroughly respect the right to do that. And good morning to you, Mr. Lowry. We are glad to have you here, sir. Glad to have you. So yeah. Okay, I've got a tweet about Elon's segment. It is priceless. Okay, I'll look into that. That's from the Rumble side of things. So as I say, it's been a completely wild week. I think I now understand fully that old song by Frank Sinatra. The song is called "That's Life," and the chorus goes, "I've been a pauper, a pirate, a poet, a pawn, and a king. I've been up and I've been down and I've been over and out. And I'll tell you one thing: each time I find myself flat on my face, I pick myself up and get back in the race." That's the chorus of the song. And that's kind of how I felt this whole week. I've been physically tired. I have had a lot going on. And like most new content creators or anybody new in anything they're endeavoring to do, you have those moments of frustration. And then along came Thursday night. And you all have probably heard, for people who regularly follow what I do here, we did a live stream Thursday night covering the Newsom DeSantis debate, which we're going to talk about, by the way. And I thought it was going to be a disaster. I mean, I was having technical problems. I was scared to death. Ruben and I were going to blow the thing. Then the technical problems worked themselves out. And then all of a sudden, when we're right in the middle of this thing, I'm looking over at the number of people in YouTube, and we had like 200. Then it went to 300. Then 4, then 5. And then at one point it eclipsed at over 600 people. And I about lost it on the air. Really did. fortunately, I had enough grace about me to keep my composure. And when it was all said and done, that live stream, and I'm going to be totally honest about something here, I almost didn't do it. Almost did, and I thought, yeah, why not? This actually intrigues me just enough. I ought to cover this one. But that, by the time it was all said and done, is probably one of the most successful things I've ever done so far in the brief little life of this channel. And, it kind of reminded me, there are reasons why you do this. There's a lot of reasons why you do this. And the payoff is part of the payoff is on nights like that. So, again, for everybody who was there, Robert, Gypsy, Z Highness, Flagrant, up in Connecticut, and people who aren't even here yet, Leanne, etc., others. Yeah, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for everything you guys did, retweeting it, putting the word out there. I mean, it was crazy, crazy good. So, yeah, I've had a lot of wild stuff happening this week, and there's been a lot of wild stuff happening in the news. Let's see, over on the Rumble side, we got Leanne who says, I'm just here briefly before church. Want to check in with everyone, see what the news of the day is. Oh, bless your heart, dear. We're glad to have you. Glad to have. Yes, and that blew my mind. Yeah, I mean, the night when we started that night on Thursday, I was sitting on about like 520, and I had lost a subscriber. And being a small channel, you're always trying to gain, but when you lose one, that one hurts even more. It's like, it's like, don't go. We're still doing good stuff here. Why are you leaving? And everybody has the right to come and go as they please, or subscribe or unsubscribe. But it's just like, don't do that. And then when the night was over, we're like up by like 23 subscribers. I'm like, what the hell? So it was crazy, just absolutely crazy. But, you're not here to listen to me ramble on, bless your hearts. And Leanne's trying to catch some news before we actually start, before she goes into church. There's a lot of really interesting things that have happened over the course of this week. And I mean, I'm looking at my list of tabs, and to borrow that old expression, I feel like a mosquito in a nudist colony. I don't quite know where to start first, but I'll start, I suppose, with the biggest shot heard around the internet world, Elon Musk. And there's a lot you can say about old Elon, and all of it may or may not be true. A lot of it probably is. But this week, Elon was attending something hosted by the New York Times called the Deal Book Summit, which is apparently a big, highfalutin meeting of very influential people around the world. Bob Iger, from the CEO of Disney, was there, among other people. And Elon is being interviewed by a gentleman named Andrew Ross Sorkin. And I want to kind of give some context to this before I play the clip. So Elon had gotten himself in some hot water with a tweet, something that he retweeted and then commented on. It got accusations that he's anti-Semitic started, which, these days there's two things you should never be in the world in the eyes of people on the political left, and that is either, anti-progressive or anti-Semitic. Whether it's actually true of you or not is not the issue. You just don't want to be accused of it because, oh my Lord, talk about giving people a case of the vapors. But that gets started. So, among other things, Elon Musk, in his travels, he goes to Israel. He wants to see the places where Hamas attacked Israelis on October the 7th. Okay, so he comes back to the United States, and he attends this event, again, hosted by the New York Times. So he's being interviewed by a gentleman named Andrew Ross Sorkin, and this clip has made its way around the internet more times than I can even begin to think about, but I want to try and put all of this in context. We're going to play the whole thing. We might stop this at various points, and, we'll see what we've got here. So, just hang loose for a second. Listen to this, and like I say, I want you to kind of understand the background before you get to his question, okay? So that sets it up, and we're going to start this in 3, 2, 1.
Now, obviously, you know that there's a public perception that, and you're clarifying this now, but there's a public perception that that was part of a apology tour.
He's talking about the trip overseas,
if you will. That this had been said online. There was all of the criticism. There was advertisers leaving. We talked to Bob Iger today.
I hope they stop.
You hope?
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go fuck yourself.
Now, it's kind of funny what's happening here, because you get this nervous laughter from the audience, like, I can't believe Elon just said that. Did he really just say, go fuck yourself? Okay, you want to put that to the test? Well, let's go a little further.
But
go fuck yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob.
I love that. It's like, hey, Bob Iger. Hi. Let's continue.
In the audience.
well, let me ask you then.
That's how I feel. Don't advertise.
How do you think then about the economics of X? If part of the underlying model, at least today, and maybe it needs to shift, maybe the answer is it needs to shift away from advertising. If you believe that this is the one part of your business where you will be beholden to those who have this view, what do you do?
Why?
I really wish Elon would be more specific, because I'm having trouble understanding exactly what point he's trying to make here. But, that's just me.
I understand that, but there's a reality too, right?
Yes. No.
I mean, Linda Yaccarino's right here, and she's got to sell advertising.
Absolutely. So, no, totally. So, no. Actually, what this advertising boycott is going to do, it's going to kill the company.
And do you think that
and the whole world will know that those advertisers killed the company, and we will document it in great detail.
But those advertisers, I imagine, are going to say, we didn't kill the company.
Oh yeah.
They're going to say,
tell it to Earth.
But they're going to say, Elon, that you killed the company because you said these things, and that they were inappropriate things, and that they didn't feel comfortable on the platform, right? That's what they're going to say.
And let's see how Earth responds to that.
So, okay,
Okay, there's a lot to unpack here, so let's get into this. It is very easy, and I'm not trying to take away or diminish what Elon Musk just said. Okay, so don't misunderstand me here. I'm not trying to diminish any of that, but it's very easy for someone like Elon Musk, who is a multi-billionaire, to look at advertisers who are not happy about something that he says, or something that Twitter does, or something that he does maybe with one of his other companies. Look at those advertisers and say, go F yourself. Okay? And again, I am not trying to take away from the import of his statement. Frankly, I think he is able to articulate, and did articulate, by the way, a lot of what all of us are thinking at one time or another. And I understand the situation he's describing. I mean, take it out of the context of Elon Musk and Twitter and everything that goes on in that world. Just put it in your own life. Would you want someone holding something over your head to get you to behave in a certain manner? In simpler language, would you want to be blackmailed? Because that's what they're doing to Elon Musk and Twitter right here. Okay? You've got advertisers, and part of this goes back to something that, I talked about in one of my videos, where Media Matters is being sued by Twitter because Media Matters manipulated certain things inside the Twitter website to make it look like that anti-Semitic posts, white nationalist posts, neo-Nazi posts were, advertisers, their advertisements were being put right up against and beside of these comments. And Elon's like, you're not going to pull that crap. Not with Twitter. Not with something I own. He took these guys to court, and like I said, if he can prove what he's accusing Media Matters of, they're sunk. They're going to be stroking one big check. Okay. So you kind of understand where Elon's coming from in this, but by the same token, it's very easy for a multi-billionaire to look at a bunch of advertisers and say, "Go F yourself. You can afford the economic shock." Most people can't. But on the other hand, I applaud Elon Musk for saying what everybody else would say in that very same situation. No one wants to be blackmailed. I don't care what it is, for whatever reason, especially when you're innocent. If you're innocent of something and someone's trying to hold something over your head to blackmail you into doing something they want you to do, yeah, I hope we've all got the courage to look at them and say, "Go F yourself. I'm not putting up with this from you." But Elon, like I said, launched the comment heard around the world. And that's the funny thing about the age in which we live. I mean, there's a lot of good and bad that goes along with the internet era that we find ourselves living in. But one of them is when something like this happens, you hear the expression, "It went viral," which, for someone like me who appreciates the English language, catchphrases kind of irritate me in one sense. But sometimes they're so accurate to describe the effect of an action that's been taken. This went viral. All over the world, people know about it. All over the United States, people know about it. And for my part, like I say, I applaud Elon Musk. But I also do it within the context of understanding, easy for you to do. Real easy for you to do. You're a multi-billionaire. You can survive that. I give more credit to the person who has little or nothing, and they have so much more to lose. No, again, not trying to criticize Elon here. I'm glad he said it. He should have said it. The same way everybody ought to say it. But a little more credit to the person who has a lot less. At least that's my opinion anyway. But sort of related to what's going on with Elon, did you guys happen to see that Rumble has now filed a lawsuit against Media Matters as well? They've joined in, which I kind of figured this was going to happen. So, yeah, they filed suit. Let me see if I can get the statement pulled up here. Hang on a second. See what I can do with this. Yeah, here it is. This was from 3 days ago, but I think it bears repeating. Rumble, the video sharing platform and cloud service provider, filed a lawsuit today in federal court in Florida against two co-founders of a purported watchdog organization. They sued Nandini Jami and Claire Atkin, co-founders of Check My Ads, a 501c3 tax-exempt corporation, which routinely targets news outlets and platforms that do not adhere to their political worldview. Also named our defendants are John Doe's, numbers 1 through 10, and has yet to be identified individuals who help prepare and publish the defamatory information about our website. Rumble is represented by law firm of Clare Locke LLP, which is among the foremost defamation and First Amendment litigators in the United States. Good for them. Good for them. I'm happy. I'm very happy about this. Yeah, in that regard, I absolutely agree with you. I absolutely agree. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't done it yet, say hello to this good man. He just strolled into the chat a few minutes ago. Yeah, let's get ready to rumble. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah, that's going on. So let's shift gears for a little bit and talk about some congressional news. Because something happened this week, among many other things in Washington, D.C., and I'm very nervous about what this does. Y'all have heard of the now former congressman from New York, George Santos, I'm assuming. Let's play a little game here. If you've heard of George Santos, give me an F in the chat. as the kids say these days. But George Santos was recently elected in 2022. He's a congressman from the New York City area. And George Santos is any number of different things. And it was very quickly found out that, believe it or not, George Santos was not telling the truth about certain things. Oh my God, a congressman caught in a lie? You cannot be serious. Believe it or not, yes. Shocking, I know. Absolutely shocking. And it wasn't just a matter that George Santos was caught in some lies. It went so far as it got into a courtroom, and in a federal courtroom, a 23 count indictment was handed down against George Santos, this congressman from New York. Now, that is as far as it had gotten. The indictment had been handed down. It was getting ready to go into court, yada, yada, yada. And ever since this stuff started coming out about George Santos, the heat had been turned up, not just on him, but on Republican leadership. That you guys have got to do something about this Santos guy. This Santos guy, he's a liar. He's this, he's that, he's dead. You got to do something. He's terrible. The institution will suffer credibility problems. We got to get rid of this guy, yada, yada, yada. Et cetera, and so on. Well, after much weeks and now months of hand-wringing, the House did something about the problem. And when I say the House, I don't just mean the Republican caucus, of which George Santos was a member. I mean the entire House of Representatives. This is an article from thehill.com. Santos expelled from House. What comes next? Basically, folks, by a 2/3 vote of the entirety of the body, the United States House of Representatives removed a sitting congressman from his seat in the People's House. If I read correctly online, it had been done only 6 times. This is only the 6th time in almost 250 years that a sitting member of the House of Representatives has been removed from office. So let's read on this a little bit, and then I got some things to say about it. This is an article by Miranda Nazaro, and we read the following. The House voted to expel Representative George Santos, Republican from New York, on Friday, leaving the GOP conference with one fewer lawmaker in an already slim majority. Santos was booted from Congress in a 311, 114-2 vote just weeks after the House Ethics Committee damning report said there is substantial evidence showing the New York Republican committed serious federal crimes. While the report did not recommend formal sanctions, it sparked renewed calls for Santos's expulsion, which began last spring when the lawmaker was criminally charged for allegedly misleading donors and misrepresenting his finances to the public and government agencies. A superseding indictment filed in October tacked on additional charges over accusations he inflated his campaign finance reports and charged donors credit cards without authorization. Santos is just the 6th lawmaker in history to be expelled from the House. What happens next? The U.S. Constitution requires all House vacancies be filled through a special election, which are scheduled by the state's governor. New York state laws allow for special elections when the vacancy occurs more than 3 months ahead of the next general election. Democrat Kathy Hochul, the governor, would need to call for a special election within 10 days of Santos's expulsion, and the election is required to take place between 70 to 80 days later, according to state law. That time frame would set an election date in February or early March. The seat would remain vacant ahead of the special election. Instead of holding traditional party primaries for Republican and Democrat voters to pick a nominee, local party leaders would select such a special election candidate under state law. Okay, let's talk about this for a minute, or a few minutes, actually. For my part, I'm not particularly wild about George Santos, but that's just me. Okay. Now, have I ever met the man? No, I haven't. Has he ever done anything to me directly? No, not so much. Has he ever taken a policy position, that I feel runs contrary to my core beliefs? Well, I haven't really cared enough about Santos to find out necessarily what he believes or doesn't believe. But I don't like the idea of a congressman misrepresenting himself to his voters, even if he's not directly my congressman. I don't like the idea that he's lying to people. I don't like the idea of a lot of different things. Okay. All of that said, however, there's one thing above all else I definitely don't like. I don't like the idea of punishing someone absent the burden of proof. I don't like the idea of convicting someone before they've had a chance to defend their innocence. I don't like the idea that someone is presumed guilty before, they're shown to be innocent. And that is my problem with what the House did with George Santos. Like I said, I may or may not like George Santos. To be perfectly frank, I don't particularly care for the guy. He hasn't done anything to me. No, not really. But he's not necessarily my kind of congressman either. But George Santos, like every other citizen of the United States of America, is innocent until he's proven guilty. Yes, there had been a federal indictment handed down in court. Yes, there were 23 counts against him in that federal indictment. Yes, the House Ethics Committee found that there was serious evidence that he had done wrong. No, he had not been proven guilty of any of the things of which he had been accused. Yet the House of Representatives, with an overwhelming majority of Democrats and an overwhelming majority, well, let me rephrase that, with a healthy amount of Republicans, put this guy out. And Z Highness, I absolutely agree with you on this. I agree. He's not above the law. I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with you. And if he's found guilty of that which he is accused, put his rear end out. Give him the heave ho. Let him, grab him by the scruff of the neck and the belt of the pants, and throw him out head first. But the House removed him on the basis of an accusation, and the Republicans removed him because he made them look bad. Let me say that again. The House removed him on the basis of an accusation, and the Republicans removed him because Santos made them look bad. That's my problem with what they did with Santos. And honestly, these people that voted for this don't realize what they've done. Now, here's what I'm getting at. Okay, so the House took actions against a congressman that a lot of people didn't particularly like. And they didn't like his style or his clothes or whatever about this man, okay? Whatever. They voted to put him out. He had not been found guilty of a single solitary thing. He had not been convicted in a court of law. He had not been tried in the House of Representatives. Whatever. Okay? That said, why are you throwing him out? Like I said, do I particularly like George Santos? Not really. But then again, my liking him or not liking him has nothing to do with the fact that he's innocent until he's proven guilty. Nobody had yet proven him guilty of anything. They've accused him of a lot of things, but they'd never proved it. And yet we're throwing this guy out of Congress. Do you in Congress not realize what you've done? You have opened the door that if somewhere down the line another congressman comes along, Democrat, Republican, Independent, doesn't matter, and you have enough people in the House that don't like that person, you can just start throwing people out left and right if you want to do it, and you can get the votes together to make it happen. You have set up a situation where you are going to completely, thoroughly, and absolutely ignore one of the most bedrock principles of American justice, the presumption of innocence until you're proven guilty. You're going to throw that right out the window, and you're going to open the door to a bunch of show votes where, if you're not with the clique or you're not one of the cool kids and the clique can throw you out. The damage that is being done to the House of Representatives as an institution and to American justice in general are immeasurable. Because now it's no longer a theoretical possibility. We've got a situation, a proven, actual, factual situation that you're guilty until you're proven innocent, and on the basis of the charge, we're going to take action. Not the proof of whether that charge is true or false, on the basis of the charge. And that, to me, is absolutely frightening. Absolutely frightening. But I will say this. There is one person who gets it. Well, let me rephrase that. There's one person in all this that is at least willing to apply the standard equally. And it's the one last person you'd never expect. And I've still got some more to say about this, but I have got to play this clip because when y'all hear this, you're going to begin to understand what I'm talking about. Now, under normal circumstances, I would never watch The View. I have better taste than that. Okay. However, I came across something that just it's too good. It's too rich. I got to play this. Senator John Fetterman, Democrat of Pennsylvania, goes on The View, and he's asked about this Santos vote. You have got to hear this because this is going to blow your ever-loving mind. This is great. No, I am not pulling up The View, you brat. I came across this, I heard it, and I'm like, yeah, this is just too good. Okay, hang on. I'm going to get this thing pulled up. Folks, take a listen to this, and then I'm going to a few more comments about this whole Santos thing.
And you've also been calling to get rid of Menendez, I know. But first, before we talk about that, what's your reaction to the expulsion?
Well, it's like I'm not surprised, but to me, I think the more important picture is that we have a colleague in the Senate that actually did much more sinister and serious kinds of things. Senator Menendez, he needs to go. And if you are going to expel Santos, how can you allow to somebody like Menendez to remain in the Senate? And
okay, I'm going to stop right there. And yeah, there's a lot to chew on with this. Okay. I don't agree with John Fetterman's politics, nary on one thing, but I'll give him credit. He's absolutely right. And y'all have been pointing this out in chat. I'm not ignoring you. I've just been waiting to get to this. We're going to throw George Santos out of the House of Representatives. You've got Bob Menendez, Democrat from New Jersey, a United States senator, who is accused in federal court. There have been indictments brought down on him for all kinds of crap. And Fetterman's like, well, look, if you're going to throw Santos out of the House, how can you keep Menendez in the Senate? Now, don't get me wrong. I don't agree with it on either count. I don't agree with doing to Bob Menendez of New Jersey what they just did to George Santos of New York in the House. Okay, but that's not my point. But Fetterman's right. You can't have it both ways. You can't sit there and say, well, Santos has got to go. Hey, look over here. No, we got to keep Menendez. He's one of our guys. Good for the goose, good for the gander. But again, I don't even agree with the standard that's being applied here. Menendez, in one sense, is just like Santos. They are accused of these things. Charges have been brought against them, but no one's proven it. And again, for the people back in the House of Representatives, may I respectfully point out, y'all have set yourselves up for something here. For example, yeah, Gypsy, you're right. Adam Schiff's been lying through his teeth. Should we start throwing him out? We're gonna throw him out? Or here's another one for you. You know, old Swalwell, or as the old joke used to go, he committed bang bang with Fang Fang. We're going to throw him out? He's still in Congress. Believe me, from my perspective, Swalwell ought to be thrown out on his rear. Same thing with Schiff, yet they're still there. So what do we got here? Some kind of weird application of justice? Seems to me that way. Yeah, here's another one. Pelosi's made a fortune giving her husband insider trading tips, yet she's still in the House. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and Brentley, you're right. Yeah, I agree with Fetterman. I absolutely agree with him. I mean, if you're gonna do this to Santos, hey, we can all start naming a bunch of people. Menendez, Schiff, Swalwell, Pelosi. I mean, Richard Burr, former Republican senator from North Carolina. Thank God he's already gone. He should have been thrown out. So yeah, the House of Representatives does not even begin to realize the door they've opened here. And frankly, you 105 Republicans that voted to put Santos out, shame on all of you. Shame on all of you. Yeah, and small time, I think you are absolutely correct. This could start turning into the Salem witch trials real fast, or just the weirdest form of perverse justice people have ever seen. We're going to start burning people at the political stake, not on the basis of proven crime or proven accusation. We're going to do it just on the basis of the accusation. We're going to do it on the basis of that which they are accused, not what they're proven guilty of. We're going to ignore the presumption of innocence, and we're going to throw all of it right out the window. And like I say, do I necessarily like Santos? Yeah, I could take or leave him. Don't really care for him. Whatever. That's not the point. He was still innocent until he was proven guilty of something in a court of law or before the House of Representatives. But instead of actually even holding an actual trial in the House, you tossed him. He was bad for the brand, I guess some of these Republicans felt like. So, yeah, there's that. So it is about 10 minutes after 11. We're going to shift gears here in just a second. I saw the travelers strolled through. Hey, buddy, how you doing? We're talking about all kinds of good stuff today. But, for those of you who are just popping in, I do see some new people in chat. Let me find her here real quick. Tawada. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Tawada? How you doing? I saw you in chat the other night when we were covering the Newsom DeSantis debate. Glad you're here. I got to feel. I mean, I know where I'm at politically. I saw some of your comments. Glad to have you here. Just be advised, we all may not agree on everything, but we're glad you're here. And even if you don't agree with me on everything, we're still glad you're here. So, welcome to the electronic front porch. This is what we do on the weekends. It's called Front Porch Brunch. We review some items in the news and we talk about it. And it gets to be fairly spicy in chat. We got some spice additives. I saw Brentley's in here from Dangerous Rhetoric, which, by the way, check out his channel. He and his buddy Daniel host a fabulous podcast. So whenever Brentley gets in here, it always gets spicy. So, that's always good. Let's see. Hang on. To be fair, conservatives believe that government is the problem. Of course, they won't do well at their job. Well, all right. Fair point. We'll get back to that in various forms. You're welcome, Brentley. I always try to help out people's channel if I can throw them some free advertising. Always glad to do it. So we're on Twitter, we're on Rumble, we're on YouTube. Like I say, normally we do this on Saturday mornings, and due to family commitments, I had to kind of shift that up a little bit. But let's get into the other thing of interest for a lot of people, and myself included. And let's talk about the DeSantis Newsom debate, if we may. And I've commented on it, at least from the angle of, being a content creator and all the amazing, wonderful things it did for me that night. And again, to everybody who is here now or who's watching this, wherever you are, or you're going to be watching it later, if you found my channel through our covering that debate, thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. It was an amazing night, but I'd like to take a moment and talk about some aspects of it. And some of this, my good buddy Ruben Christopher Haynes and I covered. Ruben's here in chat with me, and it was interesting watching these two guys, Newsom and DeSantis. Some of my observations were on the fly in that moment. Some of them came from watching these two guys previously, but this is the first time they'd ever directly tangled on a debate stage together. And I was hoping that the debate would have been about differences of governing philosophy, why it is these men work to enact the policies in their states the way that they do and the reasons behind them. That's what I was hoping for. Don't worry, I didn't get it. Okay. And neither did anybody else who was watching this. There were moments this thing turned into a verbal food fight, and I hate that. I hate people trying to talk over each other. I hate people not being just, it makes me crazy. There were moments that I thought both men did well, rhetorically speaking. If you ask me on the whole who won that debate, I'm going to give an answer that probably surprises people. I'm going to tell you that Gavin Newsom probably won the debate. Overall on points. And I'll explain what I'm getting at here in a minute. Now, I can just hear some people, not necessarily people in this audience right now watching, but I can just hear some people out there in the ether that is internet land. What? How can you possibly say that that Newsom won this thing? He's terrible. He's awful. DeSantis brought the facts. He was bringing the truth. He was telling you what's going on in California. How can you possibly say that Newsom? I'll tell you why. There's two criteria by which you can judge who won this debate. Okay. If you're judging it on the basis of information and facts being brought to the debate, you can make a case that DeSantis won. Now, you can disagree with the facts and the information that he brought in terms of talking about Newsom. That's perfectly fine. You can say that, and I think, there's somebody in chat goes by the handle The Traveler. He reached out to me offline and, pointed out, and I think appropriately so, both of them were bringing stuff against each other, and you're sitting there going, is that really true? I'm not so sure. You get my point. That's one criteria that you can measure who won the debate. The other criteria is the one that, unfortunately, in this day and age, is taking on more and more prominence. I don't think it should, but it does. And that is how well you come across on television. And I give Gavin Newsom a ton of credit. Okay. I've been watching politics since I was 17 years old, and I've seen all kinds of politicians come and go. Some of them really good and some of them really bad for any number of various different reasons. But I've got to say it. Gavin Newsom is probably the smoothest, slickest politician I have ever seen. It used to be the gold standard, for me at least, was Bill Clinton. Let me tell you something. From a political standpoint, and forgive me because I'm about to be a little bit crass here, but, you'll get my point when I make this statement. Bill Clinton couldn't carry Gavin Newsom's political jockstrap. That's how good Newsom is. You very rarely ever see him get flustered on stage. He comes across as in command of his oratory. He is able to take a question directed at him, flip it, and then turn it on his political opponent. I mean, and I think I can speak safely for Ruben if he's still here in chat. I watched Gavin Newsom take every loaded question that Sean Hannity, who was moderating this thing, every loaded question that Hannity threw at Newsom deflected it, answered it the way he wanted to, and turned it on Ron DeSantis. Now, I've got some clips lined up here, and I think you're going to begin to understand why I'm feeling this way. And then I'm going to get to some of your questions in chat, because Tawada asks a really good one. Well, I'll just go ahead and do it right now. I'm going to tee this up, and then I'll answer a little bit later. Why DeSantis decided to debate someone who isn't even running for president? That's a good question. It's a real good question. And I've been asking myself that ever since I heard about this. I got some theories on it, but we'll get to it here in a minute. Now, when I say that Gavin Newsom is smooth, let me show you what I'm talking about. Let me pull this up. This was near the beginning of the debate, and they're explaining, what they're doing up there. Okay. So why don't you take a listen to this? This is Newsom kind of justifying why he's there.
Here, I'm here to tell the truth about the Biden-Harris record, and also compare and contrast Ron DeSantis' record and the Republican Party's record as a point of contrast that's as different as daylight and darkness. You want to bring us back to a pre-1960s world, America in reverse. You want to roll back hard-earned national rights on voting rights, on civil rights, on LGBTQ rights, on women's rights, not just access to abortion, but also access to contraception. You want to weaponize grievance. You are focusing on false separateness. You in particular, Ron, are on a banning binge, a cultural purge, intimidating and humiliating people you disagree with. You and President Trump are really trying to light democracy on fire. So, Sean, there are profound differences tonight, and I look forward to engaging them. But there's one thing in closing that we have in common is neither of us will be the nominee for our party in 2024.
You start to see what I mean? The guy is amazing. Like I said, I don't agree with Gavin Newsom's politics whatsoever, but man, that guy is good. Did you see what he just did there? He took the question and he did one of the most important things that you've got to do. Doesn't matter if it's a courtroom, if you're a lawyer, doesn't matter if you're a politician. You've got to frame your opponent. By frame them, I don't mean, the standard, oh, he framed me for this. No, he's painting you in a light that he wants people to see you in. He's setting up the argument about This is what Ron DeSantis really is. You're taking us back to 1950s America. You're trying to roll back rights. You're trying to marginalize people. You're trying to ban books. You're on a cultural just yeah. It was amazing to watch Newsom. Just amazing. He's got to be, and I mean, like I said, to me, the gold standard was Bill Clinton. But I tell you what, Gavin Newsom is probably is gifted oratorically. He knows how to phrase his argument. He knows how to frame his opponent in a debate. Just amazing. There's a couple other clips I want to play here. Now, this one, and to give you an idea of how good Newsom is, and I think this may be the best example of the whole night of how good Newsom is at taking a question, answering it the way he wants, and then turns it on his debate opponent on stage. This is on the question, and Hannity tried his best to pin him down on this. I don't think Hannity did a particularly good job of it, to be perfectly honest, but he tried to pin him down on the question of, would you run for president in 2024? I want you to watch what happens here, and I think you're going to begin to see what I'm talking about. So let me tee this up, and here we go.
Governor Newsom, I've interviewed you twice on this issue. You say you are not running for president in 2024. In fact, you recently said, quote, you think that Vice President Harris is naturally the one lined up to run for president if Joe Biden were to bow out. Governor Newsom, tonight I ask you, will you make an LBJ-like statement? And Governor DeSantis, you say he's running a shadow campaign. In your response, I would like you to answer that. Will you say unequivocally, under no circumstances are you running?
Correct. I've said.
Okay, that's the question. Will you say unequivocally, under no circumstances are you running? Now listen to how Newsom answers this.
I don't know how many times I can say it. Just making this stuff up about a shadow campaign.
If
Bottom line,
if at the DNC convention they come and
Joe
ask you,
Biden-
will you run? What will you
Joe
say?
Biden will be our nominee in a matter of weeks. And in a matter of weeks, Sean, he'll be endorsing Donald Trump as a nominee for the Republican Party.
If they come to you at the DNC and Joe is incapable of running and they ask you, are you a hard no?
And it's not even optional. He's doing fantastically.
If they come to the convention and Joe Biden can't do it, are you a hard no?
I appreciate and respect the work the president's doing and the vice president's, the Biden-Harris campaign and team. So absolutely unequivocally,
Vice President Harris would be the next
continuing to support their efforts. President Biden will be reelected. Donald Trump will be retired.
Okay. Now, I know some people are going to listen to me go on about this and just say, you're splitting hairs here. Of course he answered the question. No, he didn't. He gave you everything around the question, but he didn't answer it. He didn't say definitively, I am not going to run. If they come to me at the convention, I won't do it. He's left the door open by the way he answered it, but he did it in such a way. He didn't answer it, turned it on DeSantis, and boom, hit him. Boom, verbally hit him. Kept verbally hitting him. The guy's good. And that's what he kept doing all night long in one form or another. Now, I said both men had, their good moments, whatever. I mean, Newsom was trying to attack, DeSantis as being extreme. And one of the questions he went after was the question of abortion. We'll get to that one here in a second. I want to answer Tawada's question directly. Why is he debating a guy he's not running against? Well, I got a couple theories on this. One of them is DeSantis knows that he's sinking in the polls, or is sunk, depending on how you want to look at it, because now we're down to, what is it? About 42 days till the Iowa caucuses. Okay. DeSantis is sunk. I mean, Newsom's right about one thing. Neither one of them are going to be their party's nominee, come 2024, at least right now. But DeSantis is sunk in the polls. maybe from his perspective, this is some kind of a long shot attempt at, giving him some street cred with people in the Republican Party, making him look at it in a new light, etc. And, raise him up in such a way that it buoys him in the polls, gets him back in the race, etc. That's his theory. I'm not buying it. The other part of it is, I think at some level, DeSantis is a proud governor. He's proud of his state's accomplishments, and he's not going to let somebody the likes of Gavin Newsom, with whatever on all's going on in California, lecture him or anybody else about how his state ought to be governed. It's pride. Now, again, you can like DeSantis, not like DeSantis, argue about his accomplishments, not argue about his accomplishments. Believe me, the Traveler gave me some commentary as it related to DeSantis. Then I had another gentleman reach out to me, in a similar vein, slightly different issues he has with DeSantis. But DeSantis is not going to let his record, be impugned in his mind by the likes of a Gavin Newsom. So why is he debating him? I think it's two things. One, he's trying to, get himself back in the Republican nominating contest for president. And two, his pride's not going to let him stand there and take that crap. At least in his mind, anyway. So that's what's going on. Now, and believe me, it is spicy on this subject. I'm looking through the chat right now. Yeah, and on this, Brentley, I absolutely agree with you. Newsom is younger and he's way more refined. Absolutely. And Gypsy, you may be right. Maybe the Democrats have got it in their head that they're going to get Newsom in there somehow. Well, we'll see. We'll absolutely see. See what else is going on out here. But yeah, so I said each man had their best moments. Let me show you one more related to Newsom, then I'll flip this around for DeSantis. This was Newsom on the question of abortion. Now I'm going to play it. It runs about a minute. I'm going to play part of this. So take a listen.
I think this is important, and it bears repeating. Ron DeSantis signed the most extreme anti-abortion bills in America. He signed a bill banning any exceptions for rape and incest. And then he said it didn't go far enough and decided to sign a 6-week ban before women even know they're pregnant, Ron, before women can even access a doctor's appointment. So extreme is your ban that criminalizes women and criminalizes doctors that even Donald Trump said it was too extreme. On the issue of the extreme exception that you highlight as it relates to the issue of later term abortion, it's almost always because of a fetal anomaly, the life of the mother. And in those rare cases, I trust, and answer your question, I trust the mother and her doctor to make that decision. I think.
Okay, that's Newsom. Like I said, if you're asking me who won this debate, I say Newsom. Like I said, that answer is going to get me in trouble with a lot of my conservative brethren, but I'm sorry. Overall, on points, I give it to Newsom. Now, that said, DeSantis did have some good moments, and it kind of reminded me, I guess the best way I can analogize that whole hour and a half between these two guys is it's kind of like a couple of good prize fighters that Newsom came out of the corner, just started landing haymakers, shots to the body, shots to the head, scoring points everywhere he could. But as the fight went on, DeSantis found a way to rally. He got in a jab, he got in an uppercut, he got in a, verbal whatever. And you're going to begin to see some of that. And I will give DeSantis credit. I mean, honestly, I don't think DeSantis is that good of a public speaker. And I'm not saying that, to try to be mean or unkind. I mean, look, there is nobody that is just the perfect public speaker. I've done public speaking in one form or another in different settings before, mostly in front of smaller audiences, obviously, than this. So I'm not going to tell you that I'm any kind of great whiz at it. I'm not. But DeSantis just does not come across well. I mean, he might have command of the facts that are presented to him and that he is presenting, but he just doesn't come across well. And see, Hines, I agree with that totally. Totally. And and Brentley, you are absolutely right as well. I think that right there is my biggest pet peeve with watching DeSantis speak in public. He's got these nervous tics, and it just comes across that way. But DeSantis did have some good moments in the debate. I'll show you a few of them, or a couple of them anyway. This was on the question of San Francisco, which, by the way, if you don't know, Gavin used to be the mayor of. Just remember that when you watch this clip. This has to do with, the general overall condition of the city of San Francisco.
This is a map of San Francisco. There's a lot of plots on that. You may be asking.
Now, I don't understand why Gavin's laughing at this. Now, if you didn't see the debate, DeSantis pulled this out of his pocket, his jacket pocket, unfolded it, and let the camera have a full look at it. So why Gavin's laughing about this, I have no idea. But let's continue.
What is that plotting? Well, this is an app where they plot the human feces that are found on the streets of San Francisco. And you see how almost the whole thing is covered, because that is what has happened in one of the previous greatest cities this country's ever had. Human feces is now a fact of life, except when a communist dictator comes to town. Then they cleaned up the streets. They lined the streets with Chinese flags. They didn't put American flags there. They cleaned everything up. So they're willing to do it for a communist dictator, but they're not willing to do it for their own country.
I want to get in with the limited time.
I thought that was particularly effective. I really did. I honestly, I give DeSantis credit. I thought that was one of his more effective. I thought that is one of the more effective moments in the debate. I really did. There's one more here that I thought was particularly good too. It has to do with the question of freedom. I want you guys to listen to this because I thought this was like a good exchange. Take a listen to this.
Gavin Newsom at one point tried to say that California was the freedom state. And I just kind of laughed, like, you're locking people down, you're doing all this. But then I thought about it, California does have freedoms that some people don't, that other states don't. You have the freedom to defecate in public in California. You have the freedom to pitch a tent on Sunset Boulevard. You have the freedom to create a homeless encampment under a freeway and even light it on fire. You have the freedom to have an open air drug market and use drugs. You have a freedom, if you're an illegal alien, to get all these taxpayer benefits. So those are freedoms. They're not the freedoms our founding fathers envisioned, but they have contributed to the destruction of the quality of life in California. And the results speak for themselves. People are leaving the state because they have failed in addressing the homeless population.
Well, I love that.
Again, I thought it was a good moment for DeSantis. Oh, okay. All right. I can see what you're saying. Nervous tics. I agree with that. But if you're talking the substance of the comment, I thought the substance of it was pretty good. That's just me. Yeah, I can see what you're getting at, guys. I can. There was one other thing that's kind of an interesting controversy, and I'm not going to play the clip that goes along with it. But I guess the original scheduled time for this thing was an hour and a half. And they get to the end of it, and Hannity's trying to wrap it up, which, I give Sean credit as a broadcaster. He was handling that part of it pretty well. And he says, really wish we could keep on going. Well, I guess it was Newsom that chimed in first, if I remember this correctly. Yeah, let's keep going. Let's go for another hour. And they look over at DeSantis like, I'm good for it. Let's do it. And as they were going to break, Hannity's like, okay, for my guests who I had lined up after this was over, you guys are going to be waiting for a while because these guys want to keep going. Well, they come back from commercial, And, Hannity announces, well, they've checked their schedules. Unfortunately, they have other commitments. They can't stay. So they went on straight into his guest. Well, it turns out that, and I don't have it pulled up here, but it may be that it wasn't the previous commitments that ended the thing. It was Newsom's wife, because it's being reported that she went up, in between, and during the commercial break and said, we're done. We're done. We're out. Which, for my part, I don't quite understand that. I mean, look, if your husband is as good as most people think he was in that debate, and personally I do, why not let him keep going? I mean, everybody, a lot of people here in chat who are watching me right now as we all talk about this, are pointing out the deficiencies of Ron DeSantis as a public speaker. Why not just let, Newsom just keep on verbally wailing on him for a while longer? Apparently not. Apparently not. So yeah. This to me was a very interesting. Even though it wasn't everything I had hoped it would be, I thought the DeSantis Newsom debate was really interesting. And Ruben and I were talking about this Thursday night. These two are going to tangle again somewhere down the line. And I'm going to be very interested to see if these two guys learned anything about how to debate each other from this one exchange that took place Thursday night. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they won't. I don't know. But just, I've got a feeling these two are going to tangle somewhere down the line once again. And frankly, I'll tune in for it. Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right. They probably didn't learn that much about each other. They just came there to make their points and leave. It could be right. It could be absolutely right. Anyway, it's about 11:35 on Sunday morning. Welcome to Front Porch Brunch. My name is Brian Trippett. I'm the Front Porch Conservative. Traveler, I saw your comment about previous topic. I'll message you on that one. I'll message you on it. But I didn't want you to feel like I missed it. I saw it, dude. And yeah, I still owe you one about the whole Ukraine thing. I haven't forgot. I owe you one. But anyway, let me message you about that one offline. So yeah, we're on YouTube, we're on Rumble, we're on Twitter. Glad to have you here. And thank you for being so gracious to join me this Sunday morning. Like I said, normally we do this on Saturdays. And, we've got a very feisty, spicy crew this morning. Z Highness, Ruben, Brentley's here from Dangerous Rhetoric, Gypsy's here, Traveler's here, other people, Tawana's here. Yeah, and we got, Leanne's over there on Rumble. Bless her heart, y'all risking the Lord's wrath as y'all, like, before you walk into church listening to my show. Bless your hearts. Tawada is here. First time she's here. We're glad to have you, dear. Seriously. Glad to have you. I don't have too many rules on my electronic front porch, but just, love each other, be respectful to each other. If you disagree with each other, that's cool. Just do it agreeably. That's my only ask. That's a good question. That is a good question. That is a real good question. Or maybe they already do, and I just don't realize it. I don't know. But yeah, we're glad to have you all here. Let's shift gears slightly and talk about a story that came out Thursday. And I didn't, for various reasons, get a chance to put a video out on it until Saturday. And for those of you who watched it so far, thank you very much. It's very, very gracious of you. Genuinely appreciate it. Yep. Brentley, we've already talked about Elon's. Yeah. We talked about top of the show, and believe me, I had a few things to say about that. But let's talk about something that I guess I want to get into this a little bit more or revisit it. But there's a story that came out of the Times of Israel that, if it's true, then talk about a very two-faced way of dealing with what's going on in Israel and Hamas. Did you guys hear about what Anthony Blinken said to the Israeli war cabinet? Check this out. Now, this is the headline from the Times of Israel. This came out on Thursday. Blinken said to tell Israel to change strategy for southern Gaza, suggest it won't have months to win the war. And according to leaked remarks from today's War Cabinet meeting attended by U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, Blinken told Israel it cannot operate in southern Gaza the way it is done in the north, a presumed reference to heavy air bombardment and crushing ground operation indicated Israel has weeks, not months, to complete its declared mission of destroying Hamas. Now, let me get you to what is supposedly been said. Now, let me back up a second. And I'm going to say the same thing here that I said in my video. We don't know if what is supposedly been leaked is accurate. Okay. When John Kirby of the National Security Council here in the United States was asked about this, he didn't deny it, but he didn't say he said it either. So there's that. We don't know if what has supposedly been leaked is accurate. And second of all, we don't know why this has been leaked. Did this person do it to damage, Blinken and U.S. politics in general? Did he do it to somehow, in some interesting process, damage, the Israeli efforts, in their war against Hamas? Who knows? Who knows? But this is supposedly a leak that came from inside the War Cabinet meeting with Blinken. Channel 12 of Israel got a hold of it. They, gets translated out to the Times of Israel. Here you go. So this is what was said, supposedly. This is Blinken. You can't operate in southern Gaza the way you did in the north. There are 2 million Palestinians there. You need to evacuate fewer people from their homes, be more accurate in the attacks, not hit UN facilities, and ensure that there are enough protected areas for civilians. And if not, then not to attack where there is a civilian population. What is your system of operation? And in this exchange, the Israeli Defense Forces chief Herzi Halevi says, we follow a number of principles, proportionality, distinction, and the laws of war. There were instances where we attacked on the basis of those principles and instances where we decided not to attack because we waited for a better opportunity. Then supposedly Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says, the entire Israeli society is united behind the goal of dismantling Hamas, even if it takes months. And here's the comment that's got everybody in one form or another up in the air. Blinken. I don't think you have the credit for that. A few more things are said. Blinken says, you don't want the Palestinian Authority on the day after. We understand that the best way to kill an idea is to bring a better idea. The other states in the region need to know what you're planning. Benjamin Netanyahu says, as long as I'm sitting in this chair, the Palestinian Authority, which supports, educates, and finances terror, will not rule Gaza on the day after Hamas. Okay. That's the story, or at least the supposed comments from this leak. And it's the one that Blinken said right in the middle of it. I don't think you have the credit for that. Now, some thoughts about this. I'm going to give Blinken benefit of the doubt here and try to be contextual with his comment. I don't know if this is what the context he intended for it, but I'm just trying to read here. Okay. Previous to that comment, the defense minister, Yoav Gallant, says, we're united behind the goal of dismantling Hamas, even if it takes months. Okay. And Blinken says, I don't think you have the credit for that. From my perspective, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe the word credit here is referring to credibility or credit with the Israeli people. Okay, I can on its face, I can accept that explanation. Laying all that aside, here's my problem with what Blinken did. And I go back to, to a very important point. I don't remember anybody looking at the United States after 9/11 and saying, "Hey, you guys have got to be proportional about this. You guys have got to be, don't be hitting UN facilities." No one was telling us how to wage war. And in that moment, had they tried to do so, I don't think we would have listened, our righteous indignation. So, with all due respect to the Secretary of State, why are you trying to tell the Israelis how to wage war here? Now, don't get me wrong. You're a diplomat. And there's a lot of nuanced things that are going into all this. But on its face, I'm sitting here looking at this saying, you're trying to tell the Israelis how to wage war after they were attacked unprovokedly on October 7th, and over 1,000 of their citizens were killed? And frankly, with all due respect to the secretary, do you not think the Israelis realize what's going to happen to them in terms of world opinion if they start, going in and without thought and without consideration start killing innocent civilians? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the Israelis' hands are clean in all this or have been clean over the years. That's not my point. My point is, I'm sorry, you don't get the right to tell a nation, doesn't matter if it's Israel or take Israel out of the equation. Okay? If somebody goes in and attacks, all right, let's just do it this way. Someone attacks Great Britain unprovoked, without provocation. Do we have the right to go in and tell the British, hey, look, I know you had people killed, but there are certain things you got to remember here, proportionality, yada, 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 on and on and on and so forth. Yeah, and on this, I absolutely agree with you. I'll agree with that. It is a fine line they're having to walk here. It really is. It's a tough situation. I'll agree with that. And yeah, and I can understand that point too, because Blinken is a known quantity in terms of foreign policy. I saw something that I've got to go back and find it. It was a speech that John McCain gave when he was still alive and a member of the U.S. Senate. I think it was on the nomination of Blinken to some position in the State Department. And even John McCain was like, look, man, this guy is... But it bugs me that we're trying to tell a nation how they need to wage war. From my perspective, that's kind of up to their determination how they want to handle this thing. Okay? I can understand the argument that we should try to be a broker for peace if at all possible. I get that. I also understand, trying to tell, parties involved, look, there are innocent civilians in this thing, understand, look, you're justifiably angry, but remember, there are some people that all they're doing is just waking up and trying to live life. I get that. But to flat out tell the Israelis how to wage war against their enemy, or like I said, take the Israelis out of the question. We're trying to tell a sovereign nation how to wage war when our advice has not been asked for on the question? That's the presumption of arrogance from my perspective. It truly is. But now I have to be politically cynical. I'm sorry. I can't help but ask this question. Is Blinken trying to tell the Israelis, look, you don't have the credibility with the Israeli people, to go a months-long campaign because he's all that worried about the opinion of the Israeli people, or he's more worried about his boss's job? Now, here's what I'm getting at. This is an article from NPR. Yeah, here we go. Americans are split over Israel's response has been over whether Israel's response has been too much or about right in response to the Hamas October 7th attack, with a majority of Democrats now saying it's been too much, according to the latest NPR Marist poll. The results were driven by people of color and younger respondents who were far more likely than others to say Israel has gone too far and said their sympathies lie more with the Palestinians than the Israelis. Now, I know I'm going to be accused of extraordinary cynicism here, but you know what? I got to ask this question in fairness. Anybody looking at the U.S. domestic situation can see that there is a vast divide between Democrats on this question of Israel and Hamas. You've got people like Joe Biden who are like, look, Israel was attacked. They are our ally in the Middle East. We're going to support Israel. On the other hand, you have a significant portion of the base of the Democratic Party who's saying, hell no, the Israelis are wrong. We stand with the Palestinians. We stand with Hamas. And this guy over here, Joe Biden, is going into re-election next year. Like I say, I'm going to get accused of extraordinary cynicism on this, but I got to ask the question, is Blinken trying to get this thing swept under the rug or get the package tied up before Joe Biden has to roll into re-election? Because, look, if the Israelis are right, and their military operation is going to take them months to do this, and they've got the will to do it, then the longer this thing goes on internationally, domestically at home, this is going to hurt Joe Biden inside his own party at a time he does not need that. You know, I mean, I think it's a fair question. I really do. Is Blinken, on behalf of the Biden administration, trying to wrap up this package, this problem between Israel and Hamas before this thing starts affecting, before it starts affecting Joe Biden's reelection chances? Well, I'll put this one up there. I was just reading this real quick. There's a fundamental difference between the U.S. and the rest of the world. The U.S. tells everyone how, when, and where to fight their wars. No one tells us anything. It's funny, but point valid. Point valid. But just I'm watching. I read those comments from the Times of Israel, then I think about the polling, and I come to the conclusion, man. I mean, look, laying aside everything else, let's just pure politics. Joe Biden and his and by the way, even inside Joe Biden's own administration, this question about Israel versus Hamas is dividing the administration, because you got Biden over here on one side, and then you got other members of administration over here, and they're on opposite sides of this. And I think Brentley's absolutely right with this statement. Absolutely right. If the polls are accurate, this thing has been bad for Biden. And if Blinken's sitting there going, man, we've got to get this thing under control before we roll into re-election. Because look, believe the polling, not believe the polling, Joe Biden is headed into one very nasty re-election fight if he goes the distance and it winds up being against Trump. Now, you can hate Trump, like Trump, whatever, but if Trump's the nominee for the Republicans and Biden's on the other side, and you've got a divided Democrat Party, this thing could get ugly for the Democrats and Joe Biden come November 5th of 2024. Just saying. Oh, goodness. So, yeah, there's a lot going on in the world right now. And if you want to know how bad it is, there was an image that I saw that really broke my heart. This is from Rockefeller Plaza the other night for the lighting of the Christmas tree. There was a protest that broke out, and it got police involved at basically a family event in New York City. and disrupted the whole thing. This is what's going on. Just saying. Oh, it's about 11:55 on Sunday morning. We're about, what are we, about an hour and 5 minutes from kickoff? Sorry, Brentley, they're football fans here. I gotta acknowledge that. I love you, but you know. So it's about 5 minutes to 12 on Sunday. My name is Brian Trippett. I'm the Front Porch Conservative. We're hanging out for Front Porch Brunch. We are discussing items in the news, and there's been a lot of news. Matter of fact, I might be doing a live stream tomorrow night. I don't know yet. I got to think about it because I've still got stuff up here that normally falls under the heading of HodgePodge Stew, and I'm going to get to some of this. We've got about a half an hour or so left. I might be doing a live stream tomorrow night to get some of the rest of this wrapped up. I don't know yet. We'll see what happens. But welcome to Front Porch Brunch. We're on YouTube, we're on Rumble, we're on Twitter. We're glad to have everybody here. And man, I want to thank you guys in chat. And I mean this in all sincerity. You guys are, as always, a lively bunch. And we got some first timers here. So I'm very pleased that you're here. And as you can tell, we're an opinionated bunch. And we don't mind sharing our opinions. And like I say, I don't have too many rules about the electronic front porch. All I ask is if you're going to disagree with each other, just be civil and do it agreeably. But as far as expressing your opinion, put it out there. Absolutely put it out there. Like I say, we've got some regulars hanging out with us. We got some more of that. I'd love to Traveler, but I've got a family commitment I got to get to. So, but yeah, I might wind up expanding Front Porch Brunch to like 2.5 or 3 hours. I don't know yet. I just might. I've been trying to keep it to 2 hours for the benefit of everyone's time, because I know that everybody's got, lives and things they've got to do and family and everything else. So I want to try and do this and be respectful of everybody, but it's kind of reaching the point. I've got so many, and this is like the second or third week now this has happened. I got so many news items that, there's no way I can do all this justice in 2 hours. Now I understand what old school broadcasters, especially on talk radio, used to go through when they had all this stuff they want to talk about and they can't necessarily do it. So I kind of get it. But so let's chat for a little bit about some other items going on. Y'all have heard about yeah, that's true. I know. So yeah, you're absolutely right, dude. I'm sorry. I got distracted by a comment I read. I'm kind of lost my train of thought there for a second. So by now, y'all are fully aware of what's going on over in Ireland, the riots that broke out in Dublin. Well, if you're not familiar with it, I'll give you a quick rundown. A young girl and 3 other individuals were stabbed outside of a school in downtown Dublin by a gentleman who'd been living in Ireland for 20 years. He was an immigrant. And riots broke out. And some people have conjectured that the people of Ireland have had enough, that they're tired of watching what they perceive to be welfare benefits being given to immigrants that are coming into the country fast and furious, and crime is going up, and the quality of life is going down, and they're frustrated and they're angry. Now, like I've said previously, I do not justify the rioting. Okay? As frustrated and angry as people in Ireland may be over this issue, that does not give you the right to loot, kill, and destroy. But as far as the anger behind it, yeah, I get it. I absolutely get it. So, turns out, as we start our first serving of HodgePodge Stew, that the government in Ireland is debating this question. And there have been some interesting clips that have come in from the People's House on the Emerald Isle of Ireland. And you better thank God I have been slipping into my Irish accent, because you really want to get your ears wailing, whatever. Yeah, you don't want me doing an Irish impression. But there have been comments made in the People's House in Ireland. So I want you to just listen to this one. This will, to give you an idea of where the government stands versus their citizens. Take a listen to this.
We need to see an independent review of what went wrong. We also need to see a real commitment from government to tackle and target the far right, to ensure
What does that mean?
intelligence-led policing is tackling and taking them on. And thirdly, we need a commitment from government to give Gardaí the resources they need, frontline Gardaí, to ensure...
Gardaí is the police force, I guess, either for Dublin or for Ireland in general.
...that we have more personnel. We need to...
A commitment from government to target the far right. What does that mean exactly? Now, again, it's a 19-second clip. I'm being a little unfair with this, okay? I really wish I could have found that clip in a broader context. But we're targeting the far right. What is... Wait a minute. Wait. And this goes back to something I've said about this whole situation over in Ireland right now. The people are trying to tell their government, hey, we don't like your policy when it comes to how we're dealing with immigration here into our nation. We want you to do something about it. Government keeps ignoring it. Hey, we're trying to tell you we don't like your policy. You need to do something about this. Government keeps ignoring. Hey, we're trying to tell you, stop doing this. And the government's not listening. Then a riot breaks out. And it's, hey, you far right extremist. Whoa, hold it. Whoa. We're the citizens of the nation. We're trying to tell you we don't like what's going on. And that's a fair point. That is fair. Right and left in Europe is not the same thing as here in the U.S. But laying aside the question of right and left, I guess when I'm looking at this Irish situation, I'm asking, look, the people are trying to tell their government, we don't like something you're doing. We want you to change this. And the government's just flat out ignoring them, at least from everything I can see so far. I mean, with all due respect to the politicians that currently run the Republic of Ireland, did you not see what happened in the Netherlands and Slovakia and Argentina? Now, granted, those politics in those nations, there's different issues that are driving the results. I understand that. I'm just saying that there seems to be something sweeping the globe in certain nations of the world. And you're seeing examples of it in elections, that when people are going to the polls, they're voting for a certain set of policies. Could it be that, immigration worldwide, or how it's being handled or how it's being treated, is starting to become a flashpoint regardless of what nation you're talking about? It's a fair question. I mean, for my part, I'm going to keep an eye on Ireland. I mean, for a lot of reasons. But this, and I pray it's not going to be this way, but this has got the potential to turn into a real powder keg. And like I say, I pray God this finds its way to peacefully resolve itself. But I am not going to lie, I don't like what I see coming out of Ireland. I really don't. It is really scary. There's eerie echoes of similarity between what's going on in Ireland and what's happening here in the U.S. But let's get to some other items in HodgePodge Stew. By the way, did you hear what happened to Barbra Streisand recently? Y'all catch this? Yeah. She had visitors at her house out in Malibu. Now, I shouldn't laugh about this. I really shouldn't, but it just strikes me funny. And not even because Streisand is one way or another on the issue that undergirds what happened to her. I mean, I've never really heard Barbara Streisand speak to some of this, but the fact that this happened just kind of cracks me up. When I saw the headline, I'm like, that's just too funny. Check this out. This is from the UK Daily Mail. Barbara Streisand has lots of spare room. Astonishing moment when boat full of migrants land on Malibu Beach over 100 miles from the Mexico-California border, close to home of the megastar who lashed out against Trump's wall. New footage shows a migrant boat landing on the beach in Malibu in the early hours of November 28th, with around 25 people running up to the shore. Migrant boat landings in Malibu, 100 miles north of the U.S.-Mexico border, are extremely rare. It is unclear if anyone was detained. The landing was near the 19-bedroom, $100 million clifftop mansion owned by Barbara Streisand, a strident critic of Donald Trump's border wall. Okay, so apparently these boat landings are rare, but the irony is not lost on me. It's like, Streisand criticizes, Donald Trump and the building of the border wall, and has here's a boatload of migrants landing on a beach right near her house, which is more than 100 miles away from the Mexico-California border. Unbelievable. Just amazing. The irony in that is most certainly not lost on me. And by the way, 19 bedrooms? God. I would love to know the square footage on that house. I really would. That's just incredible. A 19-bedroom house. Gee, God. I mean, happy for her. I mean, if she can afford it, cool. Yeah, just amazing. Just amazing. So, a few other items to go over in HodgePodge Stew. So, electric vehicles, the cotton picking rage of the age. They're going to be our salvation. They're going to save us. They're gonna make our society safer and cleaner, and clean up our environment. We don't have to worry about all that good stuff. Yeah, they just one little problem. No one's buying them. Car dealers warn Biden, unrealistic green agenda must be abandoned. Americans not buying electric cars. Story by John Binder at Breitbart. Car dealers across the United States are warning President Joe Biden that his, quote, unrealistic green energy agenda must be abandoned, mainly because Americans are not buying electric vehicles as the administration expected. Executives with car dealerships from Massachusetts to Alabama to Wyoming sent a letter to Biden this week urging his administration to drop EV mandates and green energy requirements on the auto industry, citing a lack of interest among American consumers in EVs. Quote, we are asking you to slow down your proposed regulations mandating a battery electric vehicle production and distribution, the car dealers tell Biden. Your administration has proposed regulations that would essentially mandate a dramatic shift to battery electric vehicles, increasing year after year until 2032, when 2 out of every 3 vehicles sold in America would have to be battery electric. The reality, however, is that electric vehicle demand today is not keeping up with the large influx of BEVs arriving at our dealerships, prompted by current regulations. BEVs are stacking up on our lots. Ooh. According to the car dealers, quote, enthusiasm has stalled with electric vehicles, and the number of unsold EVs sitting on dealership lots are piling up, even with deep price cuts, manufacturer incentives, and generous government incentives. Quote, With each passing day, it becomes more apparent that this attempted electric vehicle mandate is unrealistically based on current and forecasted consumer demand. The car dealers wrote to Biden, already, electric vehicles are stacking up on our lots, which is our best indicator of consumer demand in the marketplace. And, buddy, it always will be. This is one of those examples, at least for me anyway, of the government coming up with a gloriously great idea about how the world ought to operate, and then they run into the realization of the American consumer. Now, we can sit around and have a debate about, okay, are electric vehicles good? Are they not good? Are they good for the environment? Are they good for the consumer? Are they the best product out there? Are they good in comparison to a gasoline-powered vehicle? We can have that debate all day long. But in the end, there's really only one barometer of whether or not it's going to work. Are Americans going to buy it? And according to these guys who are writing the Biden administration, consumers don't want them. It doesn't matter if you give millions of dollars, billions of dollars in tax incentives. It doesn't matter what kind of manufacturer incentives are being put on. It doesn't matter all the incentives in the world. These guys are trying to tell the Biden administration, ain't nobody buying them. These things are sitting on our lots and they're stacking up week after week after week. We're getting more of them in and they're just sitting around. They're not moving. Excuse me. And I'm not laughing, at the car manufacturers per se, although frankly, from my perspective, they should have told the Biden administration to go pound sand, or any administration, frankly, to go pound sand. Doesn't matter to me if it's Democrat or Republican pushing this idea. They're not buying. The American people are not buying them. They don't want them. Well, I have not heard any reports of this, but would I be surprised to find out somewhere down the line this is happening? Probably not. I find this news item interesting. Again, we can debate the question of electric vehicles all day long, but if the American consumer isn't going to buy them, why are you still making them? Yeah, that's a whole rabbit hole of conversation to go down. Absolutely. I don't know that I'd call it a psyop, but to me, the argument for electric vehicles is based on a bunch of bad assumptions and bad data for that matter. It just really kind of blows my mind. It truly does. So, what else do we have in our stew pot? What else shall we talk about? Well, let's get back to some political news, if we may. By the way, yeah, and I think you guys out in chat are bringing up some really interesting points. Good point. Lack of infrastructure to support them. I know 5 billion. Yep. Really? I could absolutely see this. To increase the cost to register electric vehicles. Oh, God. Dumb. Just dumb. Oh, well, now that's a valid point, because I have heard this from more than one person. Absolutely. Heard this from more than one person. Okay, now I understand what you're getting at. So let's talk about some political news, as if everything we haven't been talking about is political in one form or another. Did you hear that Nikki Haley has picked up a couple of very big endorsements this week in her bid to try to become the Republican nominee for president? One of them she got was from the Koch brothers, or I should say Koch brother. The other one's dead now, but they still call them brothers. They got the endorsement of the Koch brothers. Okay, cool. Did you also know that she picked up an endorsement from somebody who's a registered Democrat? Try this one on for size. J.P. Morgan's Jamie Dimon. Democrats should boost Nikki Haley. Quote, if you're a very liberal Democrat, I would urge you to help Nikki Haley too. Give them a choice on the Republican side that might be better than Trump. Now, this is interesting. Article written by Sam Sutton. J.P. Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon urged Democrats to support Nikki Haley in the GOP presidential primary, arguing that she offers a strong alternative to former President Donald Trump. Quote, if you're a very liberal Democrat, I urge you to help Nikki Haley too. Give them a choice on the Republican side that might be better than Trump. Dimon, who leads the country's largest commercial bank, said on stage at the 2023 Deal Book Summit on Wednesday. Dimon has been talking up Haley in recent weeks as the former South Carolina governor has gained in the polls. While she's still trailing well behind Trump, she has won endorsements from an influential super PAC backed by the Koch network and has started to fundraise with Wall Street heavyweights. When pressed if he'd support anything but Trump, Dimon pushed back. I would never say he might be the president. I have to live with that too, he said. Spoken like a true businessman. The banker also urged liberals, particularly New York City residents, to stop looking down on ultra-MAGA Americans. Quote, you're insulting a large group of people, he said, adding later that both sides could benefit from listening to each other. I just think people should stop denigrating each other all the time because people take a point of view that is different from yours. Well, that's a fair point. That's completely fair. And you know what? For that, I'll give Jamie Dimon credit on that last line. I'll absolutely agree with that. Absolutely agree with that. But for those of you who are wondering, well, what the heck is a Democrat like Jamie Dimon urging liberal Democrats to go out and support Nikki Haley? I don't know if some of you guys in the audience remember this or not, but have you ever heard of Operation Chaos? Basically, what it involved, and I'm hoping that I'm remembering this correctly, Rush Limbaugh back in 2008 during that election was urging Republicans to cross over and, if I remember this correctly, vote for Hillary to try to keep the election going on the Democrat side. And he came up with a unique name for it, and he called it Operation Chaos. Well, this to me is Operation Chaos in reverse. This is, hey, you liberal Democrats, why don't you, go out there and vote for Nikki and give the Republicans some choices against Trump? Now, if that's what Jamie Dimon is trying, oh, of course you would remember, Gypsy. Bless your heart. You got a fabulous mind for these sort of things. God love you. Now, if that's what Jamie Dimon is intending here, to try to get, liberal Democrats, to cross over and vote for Nikki to help her try to defeat Trump, no offense to the CEO of Chase Bank, but, you might be a brilliant businessman, but this is not a real good idea, especially in a Republican primary. First of all, you and your particular line of work, regardless of whether it's Republicans or Democrats, is not exactly viewed in the most favorable of terms, going all the way back to the days of the Wall Street meltdown and the mortgage crisis. People still haven't forgotten what you guys did back then. Just saying. So you try to tell, people that they ought to cross over and vote for Nikki. You probably just gave her the kiss of death. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think Nikki Haley's going to go very far in the Republican primaries anyway against Donald Trump, especially if you believe the polling. But if she did have any chance, you probably just sank her good. So, congratulations, Mr. Dimon. You probably just killed Nikki Haley's chances while you're trying to help her out. Just saying. Okay, looks like we are going to be able to finish everything in one shot. I just want some real quick Trump news in the last few minutes. Remember how I said at the top of the show, my whole existence this week has been kind of like that old Frank Sinatra song, "That's Life." I've been up and down and over and out. And I know one thing. That's kind of what happened to Trump this week. He did get some good news. This is from Bloomberg. Deutsche Bank executive testifies loan to Trump wasn't unusual. Bank disputed Trump's net worth, but still provided him loans. Difference of opinion on assets is not uncommon. Now, for those of you who may not remember what's going on with this trial, Letitia James, the Attorney General for the state of New York, has brought suit against the Trump Organization on the grounds that they misrepresented their assets that they used to secure certain loans from certain banks in New York City. And Trump has responded, hey, these assets were more than enough to cover the amount of the loans, yada, 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 et cetera, and so on. Well, now you've got an executive from Deutsche Bank who came forward and said, yeah, we didn't really have a problem with anything Trump did. So let's go back to this article for a second. A Deutsche Bank AG executive gave testimony that could bolster Donald Trump's defense in his civil trial, telling a New York judge that prospective clients can get loans even after reporting a net worth far higher than the lender's own calculations. David Williams, who worked on at least one of the 3 loans Deutsche Bank made to Trump in the years before he was elected president, testified Tuesday that it's, quote, atypical, but not entirely unusual, for the bank to cut a client's stated asset value by 50% and approve a loan anyway, as it did with Trump. Is the bank capable of reaching its own judgment based on the evaluation it makes of the guarantor's financial condition? Trump attorney Jesus Suarez asked Williams, a managing director at the German bank. Yes, certainly. The suit brought last year by New York Attorney General Letitia James accuses Trump of inflating his assets by as much as $3.6 billion in order to get better terms from banks and insurers. Trump is scheduled to take witness stand for the second time on December 11th, when he's likely to double down on his earlier testimony that no banks were financially harmed by loaning him money. So there you go. And I'm not necessarily surprised by this guy's testimony, although I didn't know it was coming. I mean, I've known enough bankers and particularly commercial lenders. The prospective company trying to obtain the loan could tell them anything. The bank is going to do its own independent evaluation. And in some cases, banks will put in their own internal rules that they can only loan up to X certain amount of the stated assets. And it may very well be the case that's what Deutsche Bank did here. So, that's a little piece of good news for Trump and his various legal troubles. On the other hand, he did get some news that did not go as well as expected. This is from the Epoch Times, and we read the following. Trump gag order reimposed by New York Appeals Court. The gag order is related to former president's civil trial in Manhattan. Article by Tom Osmek. An appeals court in New York has reinstated the gag order imposed on former President Donald Trump by Justice Arthur Engoron, rejecting the former president's bid to avoid restrictions on his freedom of speech about aspects of certain parts of the civil trial that he has denounced as politically motivated. In an order issued on November 30th, a 4-judge panel of the Supreme Court of the State of New York Appellate Division overturned a temporary suspension of the gag order, which initially was imposed by Justice Engoron on October 3rd. The newly reimposed gag order prohibits President Trump from making public statements about the judge's staff after documents filed with the appeals court showed that he and his staff had purportedly received hundreds of threatening messages. Justice Engoron, who is presiding over President Trump's civil fraud trial in New York, initially imposed the order in early October after President Trump accused the judge's top clerk of political bias in a post on social media. An appeals court judge temporarily paused the gag order on November 16th while the former president appealed the order. President Trump hasn't commented publicly on the latest development, and his campaign didn't respond by press time to a request from the Epoch Times for comment. So there's that. And one more piece of news, and then we'll bring it in for a landing. Going down to the trial in Washington, D.C., judge rejects Trump's claim of presidential immunity in 2020 election case. Being president does not confer a lifelong get-out-of-free-jail pass, the judge said in her ruling. Article written by Caden Pearson. We read the following. A federal judge on Friday rejected former President Donald Trump's claim of presidential immunity and other constitutional defenses in his 2020 election case. In October, President Trump asked U.S. District Judge Tanya Shutkin to dismiss the election interference charges against him in a Washington, D.C. court on the grounds that the U.S. Constitution grants him an absolute immunity for facts within the outer perimeter of a president's official responsibility. However, on Friday evening, Judge Shutkin, an Obama appointee, found no legal foundation to conclude that presidents are immune to criminal charges after leaving office. In a 48-page ruling, the judge wrote that neither the U.S. Constitution nor any court or branch of government has ever accepted this argument, and this court will not hold so. Whatever immunities a sitting president may enjoy, the United States only has one chief executive at a time, and that position does not confer a lifelong get-out-of-jail-free pass. Former presidents enjoy no special conditions on their federal criminal liability. Defendant may be subject to federal investigation, indictment, prosecution, conviction, and punishment for any criminal acts undertaken while in office. Okay. Alrighty then. So, like I said, he's been up and down and over and out. So that's what goes on with the latest Trump news, legally speaking. So it is about 12:26 on Sunday afternoon. And I want to thank each and every one of you for stopping by for Front Porch Brunch. We will be back, God willing, next Saturday morning, 10:30 a.m., with more news and more stuff to talk about. I want to thank each and every one of you for stopping by. And thank you so much for tweeting out about the show and, everything you're doing to spread the word about my little channel. As I jokingly tell people all the time, we are a small little going little concern. We like to be a going big concern. So, God bless each and every one of you. By the way, the Christmas season's coming up. Make sure to spend as much time with your families as you possibly can. You only get one of them in life. And, for better or worse, even though there are moments they all drive us crazy, love them and love each other. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. I'll be back next week with more videos and more live streams. We're planning on doing a live stream coverage of the last Republican presidential debate between, whoever's still left on stage. So there you go. More details about that as we go forward. And I love all of you guys. Thank you again for stopping by. And as we leave, remember the words of that great American philosopher, Tom T. Hall, when he said, "It's faster horses, younger lovers, older whiskey, and more money." We'll see you next